William Shatner's character on Star Trek was in many ways a pinnacle of humanity. While Captain Kirk had his flaws like anyone else, he was adored by fans all over the globe for being someone worthy of admiration. And yet Shatner, it could be argued, was quite unlike the character he played, at least in terms of his relationships with fellow Star Trek castmates. So join us as Facts First presents William Shatner did not get along with his Star Trek castmates.
Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. More about them later.
William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. The first major feud that William Shatner had was with the other most famous person from the show, Leonard Nimoy. Nimoy, of course, played Spock and went on to become a legendary Hollywood icon from it. The two were cast as Kirk and Spock in the first incarnation of the series in the 1960s. What might be surprising to casual fans of the series is that it wasn't actually that successful early on. It ran only for 3 seasons, but it did manage to garner a passionate fan base, so that meant Shatner and Nimoy's stars began to rise at the same time. Reportedly, their initial feud was little more than classic workplace ego issues, and it was fairly one-sided. Shatner became convinced that since he was the captain of the USS Enterprise, that meant he was the lead on the show and thus should be the one garnering the most attention from fans and media. But Nimoy's performance as Spock, as well as the intriguing nature of the character as written by the creative staff, meant that Nimoy was soon getting as much love from the public and press as Shatner was, and Shatner wasn't happy about that. This anger only increased as Nimoy became even more popular than him. While he didn't cop to it at the time, Shatner later revealed he was intensely jealous of all the fan letters and attention given to Nimoy. A day when Hollywood legend John Wayne visited the set just to meet Nimoy set off Shatner's rage in particular. Shatner began to do petty things on set to exact revenge on Nimoy, who had no idea he was the object of anger from his co-star. Nimoy had a bike that he generally used to get around the studio lot as they filmed, and Shatner would exact his revenge by hiding the bike, forcing Nimoy to walk everywhere. But it didn't stop there. The childish behavior from Shatner extended into their acting as well. Shatner reportedly scoffed at the idea that the captain of the ship wouldn't be the smartest one on screen. He understood the writers had given Spock, as a Vulcan, more specific knowledge about the universe, but he still felt that Captain Kirk's mental abilities should surpass Spock's. So Shatner took matters into his own hands and began stealing some of Nimoy's lines, specifically ones that made Kirk sound smarter than Spock. At this point, Nimoy had started to notice Shatner's petty and passive-aggressive plots, and he was understandably upset about it. That's when their feud became a mutual one. The two then came to a stalemate when a photographer was on set to do a photo series on Nimoy. First, Shatner wouldn't allow the photographer to be in the cast dressing room where they were having their makeup done. To counter this, Nimoy refused to have his makeup put on until the photographer was allowed in and took photos of him for the piece. Neither would budge, and this tiny rift nearly caused production to cease for the entire day of shooting.
With inflation and the increasing cost of living, it's difficult to stay on budget to save for retirement. Having some extra guidance with budgets can help, and that's where Rocket Money comes in. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. The personal finance manager allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, monitor your credit score, and build your savings all in one place. Rocket Money can see if you have recurring charges for subscriptions you forgot about. From there, they cancel unwanted subscriptions for you with just a tap. You never have to get on the phone or try to hunt down the cancel button. Inside the platform, you can set budgets and monitor your spending for those categories. If you go over budget, you'll get friendly notifications that help you stay on track. You can also monitor your credit score. With complete access to your credit reports and history, Rocket Money alerts you of important changes that impact your score and offers you insights on ways to improve it. Rocket Money is trusted by 3.4 million members and counting. To try it out for free today and unlock more features with premium, head to rocketmoney.com/factsfirst or click the link in the video description.
Shatner and Nimoy made up, and then didn't. As the two legendary actors got older, more successful, and perhaps more mature, they were able to mend their relationship. In fact, they became downright close, so much so that Shatner wrote a book entirely about Nimoy, his amazing career, and their friendship. In it, he even went as far as to call Nimoy his only real friend. and yet the actions of both men seemed to speak differently. Reportedly, when Nimoy died, the two men hadn't spoken in 5 full years. This was likely due to an incident that happened during the filming of a documentary called The Captains. Shatner requested that Nimoy be interviewed, but Nimoy said no. Shatner ignored this rejection and instead had a cameraman go to a convention where Nimoy was appearing. The cameraman shot footage of Nimoy interacting with fans at the convention, and then the footage was used in the documentary without being cleared by Nimoy. And while the two repeatedly never had an argument about this incident, they didn't speak again. Shatner tried to smooth things back over in the following years with several handwritten notes, but Nimoy wasn't responsive. This rekindled feud is not exactly something you'd expect from two best friends. Then there was the issue of Nimoy's funeral. In short, Shatner didn't go. In fairness, he was across the country in Florida attending a charity event, but fans became suspicious and angry when it was revealed he actually flew home anyway and landed back in LA in time for the funeral, but he chose not to go. Of course, people handle deaths of friends in different ways, and simply not attending the funeral isn't a sign of a lack of respect or friendship, but to the public, it wasn't a great look. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. William Shatner and George Takei. These two co-stars have been feuding for decades now, without any periods of reconciliation. It didn't emerge because of anything in particular between the two, but more so because George joined the opinions of much of the cast that Shatner's inflated ego was exceedingly difficult to deal with on and off set. So he never particularly liked Shatner, and the two generally didn't hang out or speak much to each other in the early years. Takei later said it was difficult for the cast and crew to deal with a person who doesn't act like a team player. He said the rest of the cast and crew were in line with each other when it came to how to make a show and movies as a team, but that Shatner simply was obsessed with having the most screen time, and this put a damper on production. Things were inflamed when Shatner called out Takei publicly for not inviting him to his wedding. Takei, for his part, insisted Shatner was indeed invited, but that he had never responded. That the two felt the need to make this potential postal service error a major public issue speaks to the lack of respect they have for one another. Takei has claimed their feud isn't actually all that intense or relevant, but that Shatner tries to rekindle the flames of it when he wants public attention. According to Takei, the animosity is one-directional at this point. William Shatner and James Doohan and Walter Koenig. James Doohan and Walter Koenig were two other prominent Star Trek cast members, playing Scotty and Chekhov respectively. And while these two didn't have quite the feud with Shatner that Nimoy and Takei had, they certainly shared in the general sentiment that Shatner was difficult to work with and that his ego was a consistent problem. Doohan sometimes had to deal with the same issue as Nimoy though, the one where Shatner would steal his lines. This can be infuriating for any actor. He was also a hero fighter pilot in World War II, yet still had a humble and grounded personality. So it rubbed him the wrong way that Shatner's personality was egocentric. Koenig, for the most part, didn't have beef with Shatner, but he did admit to sharing a bonding experience with the rest of the cast as it related to Shatner. He said they all got along even better because they all complained to each other about Shatner and his inflated ego. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you surprised to hear about these feuds between William Shatner and his Star Trek castmates? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.